The moment I saw her hand tremble, I knew something was wrong. I wasn't looking for it. I never intended to find anything. In fact, I never really cared about digging through her past. It was her past. But there I was, standing in the middle of our living room, holding something that had never been meant for me to find. It was just an old magazine, tucked under a stack of books on the coffee table. It caught my eye, mostly because of the way it gleamed under the soft light of the room. A forgotten relic, probably discarded long ago. But something about it seemed different, unusual, almost like it was calling out to me. I picked it up, brushing the dust off the cover. The photo on the front was of a young woman, a model, her eyes sharp and cold like she was staring right through the camera. The headline read, "Breaking Boundaries, New Faces to Watch in 2008. I couldn't explain why, but a cold shiver ran down my spine as I flipped open the magazine. And there she was. The woman in the photo was unmistakably her. It was a younger version of my wife, her face lit up by the kind of confidence I never saw in her anymore. She was a different person back then, someone I had never known. It didn't make sense. She never talked about this time in her life. Not once. And yet here she was, her face smiling back at me from the pages of a fashion magazine I had never seen before. The glossy print, the caption under her face, a star in the making. I sat down on the couch, the magazine still in my hands. My mind was racing. How was it possible that I had missed this? The woman I had married, the one I thought I knew, had this whole other life before me. She had been someone entirely different, someone far removed from the person I had come to love. I glanced over at the hallway. She was still in the kitchen, humming to herself, completely unaware. I could hear the sound of dishes clinking, her voice softly singing along to whatever song played on the radio. But my attention was fixed on the magazine in my lap, on her face staring up at me, frozen in time. I didn't know what to think. Should I be angry? Should I confront her? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't know where to start. I never thought to ask her about her past. In fact, I never really cared to know. We were building a life together, one that seemed to have everything: comfort, stability, affection. Wasn't that enough? I put the magazine down for a moment, trying to calm my mind. But something nagged at me, something I couldn't shake off. I had to know. Why had she never told me? Did she think it was something I couldn't handle? Or was there something darker, something I wasn't seeing? I stood up, the magazine still in my hand, and slowly walked to the kitchen. She was chopping vegetables, her back turned to me. She didn't hear me approach. I hesitated, standing just behind her for a few seconds, unsure of how to begin. But when I finally spoke, my voice didn't sound like my own. "Fiona, why didn't you tell me about this?" She froze mid-chop. The knife in her hand was suspended in the air for just a fraction of a second, and then, as if she had been jolted back into reality, she set it down carefully. Her shoulders tensed. "What do you mean?" she asked, her tone a little too casual. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I held up the magazine, the very one she had never mentioned. "This." She turned slowly, her face going pale. It wasn't just surprise that flashed in her eyes. It was something deeper. Guilt. Fear. I could feel it. There was more to this than just a forgotten photo shoot. "Where did you find that?" she asked, her voice suddenly cold. "In the living room," I said, trying to remain calm, though my heart was pounding. "Why didn't you ever tell me about this? About who you were before? About this life you had?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't say anything for a moment, but her eyes betrayed her thoughts. She was calculating, deciding whether to tell me the truth or to keep lying. "It was a long time ago," she muttered, turning back to the cutting board, her hands trembling slightly as she resumed chopping the vegetables. "A lifetime ago." I wasn't sure what to make of that. A lifetime ago. It hadn't seemed that long ago when I saw her face, the youthful expression frozen in time. I watched her for a moment, unsure whether I should press her further. But I couldn't let it go. Something about this felt wrong. "Why didn't you want me to know?" I asked quietly, my voice low but persistent. "What else are you hiding from me?" Her hand paused again, and for a long second, the only sound in the room was the soft hum of the refrigerator. Finally, she put the knife down and faced me. "I didn't want to tell you because that person isn't me anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't want you to see me as someone I'm not." I couldn't quite understand what she meant. She wasn't someone she was. But who was she really then? Before I could ask anything else, she turned away and walked towards the living room, the weight of her silence hanging in the air like a thick fog. I stared after her, the magazine still clutched tightly in my hands, my thoughts racing. I had no idea what was going on, but something told me that the truth, whatever it was far more complicated than I could ever imagine. The silence in the kitchen was suffocating. Fiona had turned her back to me, focusing on nothing in particular, as if she were trying to avoid the question I had just asked. The tension in the air was thick, and I could feel it pressing in on me from all sides. She wasn't answering me, and that silence spoke louder than any word she could have said. "Fiona," I said again, my voice a little firmer now, but still laced with confusion. "You can't just leave it at that. I need to know what's going on." She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she placed the knife down gently on the counter, then ran her hands over her face, as if she were trying to gather her thoughts, or maybe even trying to stop herself from breaking down. I watched her carefully, her movements slow, deliberate. I could tell she was struggling with something, but she wasn't ready to open up about it. "It's not that simple, Nick," she finally said, her voice quieter now. "You don't understand. That part of my life, it's not who I am anymore. I've left it all behind." I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. "But why keep it from me? Why not tell me about it? We've been married for years, Fiona. I thought we didn't hide things from each other." She turned back to face me, and her eyes were filled with something I hadn't seen before, a mix of regret and fear. She bit her lower lip and looked away quickly, as if she couldn't bear to look at me for too long. "It's not that I didn't want to tell you," she began, her voice shaking just slightly. "I just didn't think it mattered. I thought it was over, and I didn't want you to think I was someone I'm not. The woman in those pictures, the woman you saw in that magazine, she's not me anymore. She's a stranger to me." I could feel the wall she was building between us getting higher with every word she spoke. The more she said, the more I realized that she was keeping something from me, something big, and I needed to know what it was. "Stranger or not," I said, trying to keep my tone even, "she's still a part of you. Why did you hide it from me? Why didn't you tell me about your past when we first met? I thought I knew everything about you." Her face went pale, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes. It was subtle, but it was there. She was nervous. No, she was terrified. It was as if something was bubbling to the surface that she couldn't control, something she had been keeping buried for a long time. I didn't know how to explain it. She whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's complicated, Nick. You wouldn't understand, and I didn't want to drag you into it. I thought it would be easier if I just moved on and never looked back." I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. "I can't just let this go, Fiona. You've been hiding a whole part of your life from me, and I don't know why. What happened? What are you so afraid of?" She stood there for a moment, her back turned to me again, her shoulders tense. I could hear her breathing deeply, as if she were trying to compose herself, but the silence stretched out too long, and I was beginning to lose my patience. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "There's more to the story, Nick. More than you're ready to hear. But I can't tell you everything. Not yet." That was it. Her words were like a spark to a dry wick, and suddenly, I felt the fire of suspicion igniting in me. "What do you mean, not yet? Fiona, what are you hiding?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned towards the living room, her movements quick and almost frantic. She walked past me without saying another word, heading straight for the bookshelf by the window. I followed her, my heart racing. When I caught up with her, I saw that she was pulling something from the shelf, a small, worn-out box that I had never noticed before. It was hidden behind some old books, covered in dust. She opened it carefully, as if it were something fragile, and inside, there were more magazines. More articles. More photos of her from the past, some of them even older than the one I had seen earlier. I didn't know what to say. There were hundreds of them, dozens of magazines, interviews, and articles about her, all documenting a life I hadn't known existed. The woman I thought I knew, the one I had married, was hiding a past so vast, so complicated, that it felt like a completely different person. "I never wanted you to find these," Fiona said, her voice trembling. "But I can't keep running from it. It's too late for that now." I stood there, staring at the box, the images in front of me blurring together. What was going on? Who was she? How could I have married someone so deeply tied to a world I had never known? And why had she kept it all from me? For the first time, I felt completely lost. I couldn't trust my own memories of her anymore. The woman I had married was not the woman I thought I knew. And the more I looked at those photos, the more I realized that nothing about our life together was as it seemed. Why did you stop? I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief. Why did you leave all of this behind? What made you quit this life? It looks like you were on top of the world, Fiona. You were living the dream. What happened? She closed her eyes, as if bracing herself for something painful. I had to make a choice, Nick. And I chose you. I thought that by leaving all this behind, I could start fresh. I thought I could leave that part of me in the past. But now it's come back, and I don't know how to handle it. I stepped closer to her, my mind racing with questions. What had she left behind? What had happened to her that was so bad, so dangerous, that she couldn't even share it with me? And why, after all this time, was it coming back to haunt her? She looked up at me then, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. I'm sorry, Nick, but there are things I can't change, things I can't explain. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I had no idea where this was heading, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever was buried in Fiona's past was about to come to light, and nothing would ever be the same again. The silence between us stretched on, thick and suffocating. Fiona was standing next to the shelf, still clutching the box of magazines, her eyes staring down at the contents as if they were a guilty reminder of something she had tried desperately to forget. I watched her carefully, trying to piece together the fragments of her past that she had so carefully kept hidden from me. But the more I thought about it, the more the pieces just wouldn't fit. It felt like I was holding a puzzle that had been scattered and mixed up, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't make sense of it. Fiona finally set the box down on the floor, carefully but with a sense of finality, and then turned to face me. Her eyes were filled with a mix of exhaustion and resignation, as if she had been carrying a burden for far too long, and now, finally, it was too much to bear. Nick, she said softly, her voice trembling just slightly. I never wanted you to find any of this. It wasn't part of the life I was building with you. I thought I could leave all that behind, but now. She trailed off, her words hanging in the air. Now I see that it's not that easy. You've seen it, and you want answers. But I don't know if I can give you all of them. I took a step closer to her, my pulse quickening. Every fiber of my being was screaming for answers. What was she hiding? What had happened to her that was so terrible that it made her want to erase it all from her life? I couldn't understand it. Fiona, please. You can't keep shutting me out. We're married, for God's sake. You don't get to just leave parts of yourself in the past and expect me to accept it. This affects me too. She looked at me, her lips trembling. She was silent for a long moment, as if weighing something inside of herself. I could see the internal struggle in her eyes. She wanted to tell me everything, but there was something holding her back. Finally, with a deep sigh, she spoke. I was part of a world that wasn't what it seemed, she began, her voice low, almost hesitant. Before we met, I was in the fashion industry. Yeah, you saw the magazine. But it wasn't just modeling. I was deep into that world, Nick. I was involved with people who didn't have my best interests at heart. I thought it was glamorous at first, but over time, it became something else entirely. I became someone I didn't even recognize anymore. I felt a knot tighten in my chest as I listened to her words. I had known about her modeling career. She had mentioned it briefly a few times, but she never went into detail. Now, it was clear that there was much more to the story than I had ever imagined. It wasn't just about photo shoots and magazine covers. It was about a life she had left behind, a life that seemed to have a dark side she wasn't willing to talk about. Who were these people? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What happened? Why did you leave all of that behind? Fiona's gaze drifted to the window, as if she were searching for the right words. There were people in the industry who... She paused, shaking her head. I don't want to go into details, but there was a man, a powerful man. He was someone I got close to in the industry, and at first, I thought he was just another rich, successful figure. But over time, I realized how controlling he was. How manipulative. Her voice faltered for a moment, and I saw her fists clench at her sides. He had a hold on me, Nick. A tight one, and I didn't know how to break free. My heart sank as I realized the gravity of what she was telling me. This wasn't just a glamorous past that Fiona had been trying to hide from me. It was a toxic, dangerous part of her life that had left scars she hadn't been able to heal from. It was a part of her that she had buried deep, thinking it was gone, But now, it was rising to the surface once again. I didn't know how to get out of it, she continued, her voice breaking slightly. I felt trapped. He had a way of making me feel like I owed him everything, like I couldn't leave. And for a while, I didn't want to. But eventually, I realized what it was doing to me, what it was doing to my soul. I couldn't be that person anymore. So I walked away. I cut ties, left the industry, and I thought it was over. I was speechless. I had no idea. None of this was what I had imagined. Fiona, the woman I had married, had been caught in a world of manipulation and control. She had been trapped by someone who had used his power to shape her, to keep her in line. I couldn't even begin to fathom the emotional toll it must have taken on her. Why didn't you tell me any of this before? I asked, my voice shaky. Why didn't you trust me enough to share this with me? Fiona closed her eyes, her shoulders slumping. I was afraid, she admitted quietly. Afraid that you would see me as damaged, as someone who had been broken. I didn't want you to look at me differently. I wanted to be the woman you loved, the one you married. But I wasn't sure how to tell you about all the things I've been through. And I was scared that if I did, you would leave me. Her words hit me harder than I expected. Scared that I would leave her? The thought never crossed my mind. I loved her. I always had. But now, I realized that the woman I thought I knew had been carrying a secret that was far more complicated than I could have ever imagined. So what happens now? I asked, my voice barely audible. What do we do with all this? You can't just bury it again, Fiona. It's out in the open now. Fiona looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and fear. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know what comes next. But I can't pretend anymore. I can't hide from the truth. I nodded slowly, trying to process everything she had just shared. It wasn't the life I had imagined we were building together, but it was Fiona's truth. And as painful as it was, I realized that if we were going to move forward, I needed to accept it, no matter how difficult it was to understand. There was no going back to the way things were. We had to face whatever came next together, no matter how messy or complicated it might be. Fiona's words echoed in my mind long after she stopped speaking. The more I tried to process them, the more tangled everything became. She had been part of something darker, something that left marks on her that I could never have imagined. It wasn't just the fashion world. It was the man behind it, the one who had a hold on her, who had manipulated and controlled her. I couldn't wrap my head around it. The person I had married, the woman I thought I knew so well, had been living a life I had never been a part of, one full of secrets and shadows. I watched her, still standing by the window, her posture tense and defensive, as if waiting for the storm I was about to unleash. But what could I say? What was left to say? She had trusted me enough to reveal a part of herself that she had buried deep inside for so long. And yet, the more I learned, the more questions I had. The trust one thought we had built together now felt fragile, like a house of cards teetering on the edge of collapse. I didn't know if I could just walk away from everything I thought I knew about her. I don't know what to say, Fiona, I said finally, my voice heavy with disbelief. This is a lot to take in. I had no idea. You've been carrying this around for so long, and I never knew. Why didn't you just tell me? I would have understood. I don't care about the past. I care about you. She turned to face me slowly, her eyes clouded with something I couldn't quite read. Because I was ashamed, she whispered. Ashamed of the person I became. Ashamed of the things I let myself get caught up in. I thought if I could just leave it all behind, I could start fresh. I didn't want you to look at me like I was broken. I didn't want you to pity me. I wanted you to love me for who I am now, not for who I was back then. The words hit me harder than I expected. She was right. I didn't pity her. I never had. But now, I could see how much weight she had been carrying. The way she tried to bury it all, to pretend it didn't matter. But it did matter. Because the woman she was back then, the woman she had been with all those people, was still a part of her. It was a part of the woman I loved, and I had to face it if we were ever going to move forward. You don't have to be ashamed of who you were, I said softly, my voice steady despite the storm raging in my chest. What matters is who you are now. What matters is that you're here with me, and we're trying to build something together. But you have to let me in, Fiona. You have to stop hiding parts of yourself from me. We can't move forward if you keep keeping secrets. She took a deep breath, her gaze dropping to the floor for a moment. When she looked up again, there was something different in her eyes. Something raw, vulnerable. It was like she had finally made the decision to stop holding everything in. There's more, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The man I told you about, the one who had control over me, his influence didn't just stop with me. He had ties everywhere. People in the industry, people in power, people I thought were just part of the job. But they weren't. They were a part of his network, his empire. And when I tried to break free from it, when I tried to leave, they made it impossible. I felt my stomach tighten as I listened. Made it impossible? What do you mean? Did they threaten you? Did they hurt you? Fiona closed her eyes, her face pale. They didn't have to hurt me physically, Nick. They threatened the people I loved. They took everything from me, my career, my dignity, my freedom. And then they made sure I would never escape. They controlled me with fear, with manipulation. I was stuck, trapped in a world I couldn't get out of, and I didn't know how to fight back. The more she spoke, the more it became clear how deep the scars ran. This wasn't just about a toxic relationship. It was about being held captive by fear, by people who used their power to destroy her. It wasn't just the man she had been involved with. It was a system, an entire network of people who had made sure she stayed in their grasp. No matter how much she wanted to escape, they wouldn't let her go. I took a step forward, my heart aching for her. But you got away, Fiona. You left all that behind. You're not that person anymore. You're here, with me, and I'm not going anywhere. I won't let them take you from me. She looked at me, a flicker of hope in her eyes. But there was something else there too. Fear. A deep, buried fear that had never gone away. You don't understand, she said, her voice trembling. They're still out there. They never really let me go. And now, after all this time, I'm afraid they're coming back. They know I'm here. They know I'm with you. The weight of her words hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about the past anymore. This was about the present, about the very real danger that was still looming over us. Fiona wasn't just worried about her past catching up with her. She was worried about me, about the life we were trying to build together. I could see it now, the deep, gnawing fear that had never left her. The fear of being hunted, of being watched, of always being one step away from losing everything. I didn't know how to fix it, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her face this alone. We'll face this together, I said, my voice firm. Whatever it takes, we'll get through it. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm not going anywhere. But even as I said the words, I could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on me. We were standing at the edge of something much darker than I had ever imagined, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was coming next. The air between us was thick, heavy with unsaid words and the weight of revelations. Fiona was standing across from me, her body stiff, as though she were still bracing for something, waiting for the storm to hit. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat echoing in my ears. The past she had buried was clawing its way back into our lives, and I knew that it wasn't going to let us go. For a moment, there was nothing but silence, the kind that presses against your ears and makes you feel like you're drowning in it. Fiona wasn't looking at me now. She was staring out the window, as though the world outside could offer her some escape, some respite from the truth she had just laid bare. But there was no escape. Not anymore. You're not alone in this, I said, my voice quieter now, softer. I didn't want to overwhelm her, but I needed her to hear me. I know it's complicated, but we can figure this out together. You don't have to carry this by yourself. She didn't turn to face me immediately. I could see the struggle behind her eyes, the fear, the uncertainty, the weight of everything she had been carrying for so long. She had never wanted to share this part of herself with me, and I could understand why. It wasn't something I could just brush off. It was part of her, and now it was part of me too. I'm scared, Nick, she finally said, her voice breaking the silence. I've been running from this for so long, trying to bury it, trying to forget. But now that it's back, I don't know how to stop it. I don't know how to make it go away. The vulnerability in her voice hit me harder than anything she had said so far. I knew she had been afraid, but hearing it from her lips, the depth of her fear, made it all the more real. There was a danger out there, something she hadn't been able to escape, and now it was threatening everything we had built together. We'll deal with it, I said firmly, stepping closer to her. Whatever happens, we'll face it. I'm not going to let anyone hurt you. Not now, not ever. But even as I said the words, a sinking feeling settled in my stomach. I wasn't sure if I was trying to convince her or myself. We had no idea what we were up against. Fiona's past wasn't just a memory. It was a shadow that had followed her, and now it was casting its dark influence over our lives. And I couldn't shake the feeling that it was only the beginning. "You don't understand," Fiona whispered, her voice barely audible. "This isn't just about me. It's about everything we've built, everything we've worked for. The people who were behind all of this, they don't just walk away. They take what they want, and if they want something from us, they'll come for it. They'll destroy everything in their path." I felt a chill crawl up my spine at the finality in her words. She wasn't just afraid for herself. She was afraid for both of us. The past she had tried so hard to escape was now threatening our future. I had no idea who these people were, or what they were capable of, but the more Fiona spoke, the more I understood the depth of the danger. "Who are these people, Fiona?" I asked, my voice rough with urgency. "What do they want from you? From us?" She shook her head, as if the very thought of it made her sick. "I don't know, Nick. I don't know what they want anymore. They've changed. The man I told you about, he's not the same person he was when I first met him. He's worse now. I didn't just leave him. I left the whole network, the whole empire he built. And now they're coming after me, after us, because they want to make sure I can't walk away from it. Ever." I felt a wave of cold panic hit me. This wasn't just about one man. This was about a whole system of power and control that stretched far beyond anything I had imagined. Fiona had been involved in something dark, something dangerous, and now it was all crashing down on us. "How do we stop them?" I asked, the question leaving my mouth before I even had time to think about it. Fiona turned to look at me, her eyes wide with something I couldn't place. Hope. Maybe, but it was fleeting, like a candle flickering in a storm. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "I wish I did. But they're always watching. They've been watching me for years, waiting for me to slip up, to give them a reason to come back into my life. And now that I've finally found a way out, they're going to make sure they drag me back into it." My heart sank at the weight of her words. There was no escape from this. Fiona couldn't outrun her past any more than I could outrun mine. But this was different. This wasn't just about the mistakes we had made. This was about people who would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. And they wouldn't just hurt Fiona, they would hurt both of us if they had to. "Then we fight back," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "We find out who they are, what they want, and we stop them. I'm not going to sit here and let them destroy us. Not when we've come this far." Fiona's eyes searched mine, looking for something, maybe for reassurance, or maybe just for the strength she needed to keep going. I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the fear of what we might be up against, and I knew she wasn't sure if we had the strength to face whatever was coming. But deep down, I could feel it. We had to try. We had to fight for what we had, for the life we were building. "I'm scared, Nick," she whispered again, her voice barely audible. "I don't want to drag you into this. I don't want to put you in danger." "You already have," I said, my voice firm. "But we're in this together now. Whatever comes next, we face it together." She looked at me, her eyes softening just a little, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw a flicker of hope in her gaze. "Together," she echoed softly, and I knew then that whatever happened next, we would face it side by side. But as I looked at Fiona, the uncertainty still gnawed at me. The danger was real. We had no idea who was out there, who was watching us, or how far they would go to get what they wanted. The only thing I knew for sure was that nothing would ever be the same again. The night felt different after that conversation. The calm that had once settled over our apartment was now replaced by a sense of impending danger. The kind of danger you can't see, but you know is lurking just around the corner. Fiona was no longer the same woman I had married. Her past was a shadow hanging over her, and it was a shadow that now threatened to swallow both of us whole. I tried to push the fear aside. I couldn't afford to be scared. Fiona needed me to be strong. But the more I thought about it, the more the reality of our situation settled in. We weren't just fighting against her past anymore. We were fighting against something far more sinister. A network of people with power, influence, and a long history of getting what they wanted by any means necessary. Fiona's freedom, our future, it was all on the line. As I lay in bed that night, I could hear Fiona tossing and turning beside me. Her restlessness mirrored my own, as though neither of us could escape the thoughts racing through our minds. The clock on the bedside table ticked loudly in the otherwise quiet room. Each second felt like an eternity, the weight of what was coming pressing down on us. "Nick," Fiona's voice broke through the silence, soft but filled with an edge of panic. What if they come for us? What if they find us? I can't go through this again. I can't lose you too. I turned to face her, my heart aching as I saw the fear in her eyes. She was barely holding it together, and I knew she was trying to hide just how scared she really was. I reached out, taking her hand in mine, trying to offer some comfort, some reassurance that I wasn't going anywhere. They won't find us, I said, my voice steady, even though I didn't quite believe the words myself. We'll stay one step ahead. I'll make sure of it. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were already too late. Whatever this was, it wasn't just some random threat. This wasn't something we could just run from or hide from. Fiona had made herself a target, and now I was too. We both were. The next morning, everything felt different. The apartment, once a place of comfort, now felt like a cage. The walls seemed to be closing in on me, as if the very space around us was trying to hold us captive. Fiona was in the kitchen, her back to me as she prepared coffee. But there was something in her movements that felt off. She was no longer the calm, collected woman I knew. She was tense, every gesture filled with nervous energy. I've been thinking, I said, trying to break the silence that had settled between us. We can't keep running. We need to find out exactly who's behind all of this. We need to take control of the situation before it takes control of us. Fiona stiffened at my words, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. She turned slowly to face me, her eyes shadowed with doubt. I don't know if we can, Nick. These people, they don't play by the rules. They're dangerous. You don't know what they're capable of. I didn't want to admit it, but she was right. I didn't know. I had no idea what kind of people we were dealing with. Fiona had tried to protect me from this, shield me from the darkness that had been following her. But now that it was out in the open, I couldn't ignore it any longer. The past was coming for us, and there was nowhere to hide. We have to try, I said, my voice firm. I'm not going to sit here and wait for them to come to us. I'm going to find out who they are, and we're going to put a stop to this. I won't let them destroy our lives, Fiona. For a moment, she didn't say anything. She just looked at me, her face a mixture of fear and something else. Maybe hope. Maybe the faintest glimmer of trust. But then she spoke, her voice quiet but full of resolve. I'm scared, Nick, she admitted, her eyes welling up. I've been running from this for so long, trying to forget, trying to build a life with you. I didn't want to bring you into this. But now, she paused, as if searching for the right words. Now, I don't know if we have any other choice. I could see the weight of her words sink in. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about taking control of a situation that had been spinning out of both our hands. Fiona's past was no longer just hers. It was mine too, and I had no intention of letting it take everything from us. I'm here, Fiona, I said softly, stepping closer to her. We'll figure this out. We'll face it together. But even as I said the words, a sense of dread settled over me. There was no going back. The life we had built, the life I thought we were living, was slipping away, replaced by a fight for survival, a fight against enemies we couldn't even see yet. And in the pit of my stomach, I knew that the hardest part wasn't just facing the past. It was facing whatever came next. The clock was ticking. We had no idea how much time we had left before they came for us. I could feel it in my bones. This wasn't going to be over quickly. And the deeper we got into it, the more I realized there was no escaping this. No matter what we did, we were in this together now. And that meant facing the darkness that had been chasing Fiona for so long. I didn't know how we were going to get through this, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them take her from me. Not now. Not ever. The days that followed felt like an endless stretch of uncertainty, each moment more loaded with tension than the last. The morning light had lost its warmth, and every noise, every glance felt like it could be a sign of something far more sinister lurking just around the corner. Fiona and I moved through the days like ghosts. Our routines completely shifted, replaced with the ever-looming fear that we were being watched, followed, hunted. We'd both been quiet about it, pretending to go about our business as if things were normal, but underneath, the anxiety gnawed at us. Fiona hadn't spoken much about the past since that night, since the revelation of the man who had kept her trapped in a world of fear and manipulation. But I could see it in her eyes. The weight she carried was still there, heavy as ever. She'd taken to retreating into herself more, spending long hours lost in thought, sometimes pacing, other times sitting in silence, staring out the window like she was expecting someone to appear at any moment. I hated seeing her like this. I hated that I couldn't fix it, couldn't make it go away. But there was no escaping the truth. The people who had been part of Fiona's past were still out there, still a threat to everything we had built. And as much as I wanted to ignore it, I couldn't. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, Fiona broke the silence between us. It was the first time in days she had really said anything, and I could tell that she had made a decision she hadn't been able to voice until now. I think I know where we need to start, she said, her voice quiet but determined. I turned to face her, my heart skipping a beat. Her eyes were darker than usual, a mix of fear and resolve in them. She had been avoiding any mention of the people who were after her, but now, it seemed like she was ready to take control. Where? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, unsure of what she was about to say. Fiona didn't answer right away. She reached for her bag, pulling out a small notebook I hadn't seen before. It was old, worn, the leather cover scuffed from years of use. As she opened it, I saw a collection of notes, names, addresses, and dates, all of them scribbled hastily, as if she had been keeping track of something she wasn't supposed to. I've been keeping this for a while, she said, her fingers trembling slightly as she ran over the pages. I didn't want you to see it. I didn't want to drag you into it. But we're running out of time. I think they know we're on to them. I stepped forward, my gaze fixed on the notebook. What is all this? Fiona glanced at me, her eyes locking with mine. There was a hint of sadness in her expression, as though she was saying goodbye to a part of herself. This is everything I've learned. The people involved, the ones who were controlling me, the ones who made sure I couldn't leave. She paused, her voice breaking as she added, and the man who was behind it all, the one who threatened everything I cared about. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. The man she was talking about, the one she had tried to escape, he was still out there, and now he knew that Fiona was trying to take back control. This was the point of no return. If we were going to confront this, there was no turning back. Why now? I asked, trying to understand. Why show me this now? Because, she said, her voice hardening, I can't keep running. I can't keep hiding from the past. I've been trying to forget everything, but it's not going away. And now, it's not just me anymore. It's us. And I need you to help me face it, Nick. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had always thought I could protect her, that I could fix things, make everything better. But this was bigger than either of us. The world she had tried to leave behind was crashing into our present, and no matter how much we wished we could escape it, there was no way around it. We'll do it together, I said, my voice steady now. We'll face them. We'll find out who's behind all of this, and we'll stop them. Fiona looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of relief and something else, maybe a little bit of hope. But the fear was still there, lurking beneath the surface. I could see it in the way her hands clenched the notebook, the way her breath quickened, as if she were preparing for something terrible to happen. I'm scared, Nick, she said, her voice shaking again. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. I don't know if I can handle what's coming. You're not alone, I said, stepping closer to her. We'll do this together. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. I'm not leaving. I'm with you. She nodded, but there was something in her eyes that told me she wasn't convinced. As much as she wanted to believe it, I could tell that she still wasn't sure if we could win this fight. I wasn't sure either, but I knew one thing for sure. We had no choice. We had already crossed a line, and there was no going back now. Fiona's past was intertwined with ours now, and the longer we waited, the more dangerous it would become. I took a deep breath and looked at her one last time before I spoke again. We need to make a plan. We need to find out who's involved, who's still out there. If we're going to stop this, we need to know everything. Fiona closed her eyes, a single tear slipping down her cheek. It broke my heart to see her so vulnerable, so scared. But I couldn't let her carry this alone anymore. We were in this together, and we were going to fight for our lives. We'll get through this, I said softly, my words more for myself than for her. We'll fight, and we'll win. The words hung in the air, but deep down, I wasn't sure if I believed them. What if we couldn't win? What if the people behind all of this were too powerful, too connected? What if Fiona was right, and there was no way out? I couldn't afford to think like that. We had to try. For both of us. For everything we had worked for. And as I looked at Fiona, I knew we were about to step into a world far darker than anything either of us had ever faced before. And I wasn't sure what was waiting for us on the other side. But whatever it was, I wouldn't let her face it alone. The next few days were a blur of determination and strategy. Fiona and I had made a pact, not just to face the past, but to confront it head-on. Armed with the notebook, with the names, addresses, and clues Fiona had carefully collected, we began piecing together the puzzle. Every step felt dangerous, like we were inching closer to something that could break us apart, but at the same time, it felt like we were finally taking back control. The fear that had hung over us for so long slowly began to fade as we took action. We reached out to people who had crossed paths with Fiona's past, old contacts who had moved on or hidden themselves away just like she had. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I could see the old fear return to Fiona's eyes, but we kept moving forward. Each new piece of information brought us closer to the truth. It wasn't until one evening, weeks later, when we received the call we had been waiting for, the confirmation we needed to bring everything crashing down. We had discovered the full extent of the man's network. We'd learned who was truly behind everything. The people who had used their power to manipulate, threaten, and control. And with that knowledge, we acted swiftly, pulling the right strings, taking everything out from under them, and ensuring that no one would ever be able to hurt Fiona again. There was a moment, after everything had settled, when we sat together in the quiet of our apartment. I looked at Fiona, her face no longer clouded with fear. She was different now, freer than I had ever seen her. The weight she had carried for so long had finally lifted. The past was no longer a shadow over her. It was just that, the past. It didn't define her anymore. I didn't think it would end this way, she said, her voice soft, her hand resting in mine. I thought I'd be running forever, always looking over my shoulder. But now, I feel like I can breathe again. I squeezed her hand, a smile tugging at my lips. We're done running, Fiona. It's over. We won. She smiled back, the first genuine smile I had seen in weeks. The kind that lit up her whole face, like the sun breaking through the clouds after a storm. I never thought I'd get here, Nick. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for staying with me through all of this. I brushed a strand of hair from her face, looking deep into her eyes. I promised you we'd face it together, didn't I? I meant it. Fiona leaned into me, her head resting against my shoulder as we sat in silence for a while, letting the reality of it all sink in. The danger was behind us now, the threat was gone, and the life we had once dreamed of was finally within our reach again. We can start fresh, I said softly, the words feeling like a weight off my chest. No more secrets, no more shadows. Just us. Just us, she echoed, and I could hear the relief in her voice. It wasn't going to be easy to rebuild everything we had lost. Trust takes time, and the scars from the past were something we would both carry. But I knew one thing for sure, we had made it through. Together. And as the days went on, we began to rebuild. Slowly at first, but with each passing day, I saw Fiona begin to reclaim parts of herself she had forgotten. The woman who had once been lost in fear was slowly returning, stronger than before. We found ourselves laughing again, enjoying quiet evenings at home, taking long walks in the park, and even starting new projects we had never thought possible. The future felt bright, as if we had unlocked a door to a new beginning, one where the past no longer had a hold on us. We didn't know exactly what the future would bring, but we knew we were ready for it. We had faced the darkest parts of our lives, and we had come out the other side, together. And in that moment, as I held Fiona close, I realized something. The world might have tried to tear us apart, but we had won. We had fought for each other, for our future, and nothing could take that away from us. The storm was over. The sun had come out, and for the first time in a long time, we could finally breathe. The world was ours again, and this time, we were going to make sure we never let it slip away.